Welcome to the Vet Show, episode number 16. Coach Robb, how are we doing today?
Hey, good afternoon, buddy. I know we've been off an extra month, and I want to let everybody know I have to take responsibility for it because, unfortunately, I was out of the country and we weren't able to get connected. So I have received quite a few DMs making sure that we were okay. So we are back, and it is good to see you, and it's good to be back with our fans and our listeners.
Well, as long as you had a great vacation with your beautiful wife, then that is all that matters. I think that everybody deserves a little break, Coach, and you especially. You run yourself ragged. You're never sick either. That's probably because you're fit and healthy. We're going to talk about that today, but you're just, dude, you're like the endurance. What like Energizer Bunny? The Energizer Bunny. That's what you remind me of.
Well, I appreciate it. In all transparency, the 3 weeks that we started in France and then we went 2 weeks into Italy, it's actually geared towards our international development program. So what we were doing was opening up some doors. We want to be able to take a group of riders from the States, take them overseas, and we want to be able to offer the same for athletes who want to come over here and race some of the races. So we'll be able to share more details on that in the future, but it was about 95% business and about 5% pleasure. And the 5% was awesome. We did put in quite a few miles, quite a few flights. And I want to publicly thank Michaela for her patience because it was a lot of impromptu meetings as well as some predetermined meetings. So we were jet setting around quite a bit, but we enjoyed it. And we're looking forward to announcing some of the things that we were able to put together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad you guys had a great time. This is episode number 16. And there is only one number 16 in my heart, Coach. You might be able to guess it. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on 16. It's funny because I've got only one person that comes to mind, and it's the late Donnie Schmidt, who hasn't been with us for quite a while. But for me, I just remember him back on the Suzuki. So when I was thinking about, hey, we're getting ready to record 16, first thing I thought it was Donnie. How about you? What's the fun one in your brain?
Zach Osborne.
Zach, legend.
Zacho. He actually, you know what's crazy, Coach? I mean, this can be kind of an off the wall story, but it's funny how many retired riders reach out to me looking for tools. As everybody knows, I sell tools, right? But they, Adam Cincerillo, my guy, Adam, Zach.
By the way, back with A-Star. How cool is that?
All that. I mean,
I know you're a Fox guy, but
but
we gotta respect that he went back to their roots.
I do, and it's fitting, right? Because if you look at the old Super Mini videos, in fact, I think I have the neck brace that you gave me is an Alpine neck brace of AC, so I have that sitting right here. But
very cool.
I'm good with it. I'm good. I hate to see him leave our brand, but that's all right. Yep, he looks got him.
I'm sorry. So
cool that all of these retired riders like Zacho just reached out to me to buy some tools and get a toolbox and stuff. So it's just wild how many of these guys that are legends after they retire need their own tools. I just thought it was kind of off the wall, but
well, isn't it cool when you start talking to them how down to earth they are?
That's the thing. That's the whole thing about our sport, and I've been so fortunate over the last several years with doing my role with Main Event Moto and doing the podcasting and going to the races and being in the press, the press meetings and stuff like that. You get to know these guys on a little bit deeper level. They're just like you and I, man. They're just regular people. They just happen to be really good at riding dirt bikes. And I think that's exactly what's cool is people lose sight of that like they're these, and they are like a Deegan, huge star, but at the end of the day, he's just a kid. He's just a kid that's really good at riding dirt bikes. And it's pretty cool how down to earth most of these guys are. They're so cool. They're just really
think about this. And I said this to Michaela when we were in Italy. You're walking through the airport and that person beside you may be able to pick up a 9-iron and hit it straight as an arrow in a distance you can't even imagine. Then the person to the right of you might be able to surf some of the biggest waves you've ever seen. Somebody in front of them might be able to rock climb like like nothing. And I love it when you look at somebody and you just never know what somebody possesses. The first week when we were in France, we stayed at an Airbnb in this small little town. It's about an hour outside of Paris. Literally the gentleman who was waiting on us, he was so nice, was just busy as a bee. And I said, man, thank you so much. Appreciate your, all your hustle. And he looks at us and he goes, I'm not a professional, in his French accent. I was like, what? This guy is in the, and I apologize, I can't speak French very fluently, but he's in the French orchestra, which is like, remember when you were in high school and people who were in the band, they were like the first chair? It's like a 40-piece orchestra that, because we did some research afterwards, like to get into it is like the top guns of being a pilot, right? It's the top one of the 1%. And this gentleman, didn't wear it on his sleeve. He's not arrogant. He's not cocky. And you're like, you look at that and you're like, that is a lot of incredible amount of talent. I don't know about you, but imagine reading some sheet music for any ballet, for any opera. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at sheet music, but it's just astounding. And then you add that it's a reed instrument, and he plays like 19 to 20 different instruments.
Wow.
So of course we were asking him, how'd you get started? At any rate, to your point, we just have some very, very cool people that are fast on a dirt bike, but they're just dudes like us. And I think that's what makes our sports. I guess all sports are cool that way, to your point.
Yeah, we lose sight of that. We lose sight that we're all human beings. We just happen to be good at certain things. So,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Back to that. This one is brought to you by HP Development. He's an engine builder down in Texas. Really good dude. So if you're looking for engine work, hit up HP Development. But today, Coach, we're going to be talking about fueling your body for health and performing. And there's 5 bullet points here that we have that we're going to kind of walk through organically. And I'll start at the first one, right? The first one's probably the most, maybe the most important one, although they are all very important. The role of nutrition in health and longevity.
Yeah, this is a very important one because as we get this conversation started today, I also want to start out by saying thank you for the DMs and the emails and the text messages, because every one of our shows is us consolidating the questions that come in, and we want to make sure that we're answering your questions. So again, when we say this is the People's Podcast, we mean it sincerely. One of the questions that came in, well, not one, but just kind of the consensus of a lot of them was, Robb, nutrition's so confusing nowadays. Where do we even begin? And I understand that, especially with the proliferation of social media, but literally keep it simple. Walk into the grocery store, shop the perimeter. If you followed us for any period of time, that is not an epiphany for you. But when we do talk about the foundation, as you just described it, of health and performance, I want you to think about that in a linear format. A lot of people want to jump right into performance. And it's kind of like you go and you have this brand new motorcycle, right? But let's go the opposite direction. Let's say you've got a bike that has 100 hours on it and you just keep putting new, bold, new graphics on it. Well, it's not rebuilding the core of what makes that motorcycle go fast and reliable.
Hey, Coach, be careful. This is a vet podcast, right? We all like to look good. We all have fresh graphics. So don't hammer us too hard here.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, we were talking a little bit about it off air. You know, when we have somebody that calls us and says, Robb, I'm running out of energy. What's going on? The very first thing that we always do, and this is what I want to encourage all of our listeners, is go to your Garmin, go to your calorie burn rate, take a couple days, 3-4 days, download MyFitnessPal. I'm not paid by it. Show's not paid by it. Download MyFitnessPal by Under Armour. It's a free app. Please don't buy the premium. It's not necessary. My point is, Dan, is just track your calories for 4 days and what you're taking in. Your Garmin's tracking your burn rate. How big is that gap? Because what I want to start with is the word foundation. You and I go and we buy a brand new bike. We go and get a used bike. It doesn't matter, right? We're thankful for anything that we can ride. What are the 3 things that you always make sure, I'm sure there's more to it. What are the 3 main things that we all focus on? We got to have fuel, make sure the radiator's topped off. We check the oil. And of course, we check spokes and chain and air filters. But the big 3 to keep that bad boy running, good fuel, plenty of oil, and make sure the radiators are topped off. Think about that as a foundation. So when we talk about the quantity of food, Dan, if you invited me to come out and ride with you, we go out to Zeb's track and you say, Robb, we're going to ride 420s. And I show up with 1 gallon of gas. You're going to look at me like, dude, do you know anything about motocross, right? Like, you think 1 gallon of fuel is going to get you through 420s? Of course, that would seem absurd, but now we're in the world of mechanical. If you want to go out and ride 420s with Dan, my question is, how many calories the last time you did a 20-minute moto with Dan, how many calories did you burn? Let's just say for even numbers, it's around 500. You know that at the track, you're going to burn 2,000. Your daily calorie needs are another 1,500 to 2,000. So especially when you get a chance to ride multiple days, And you wonder why you start with a bang and you end with a fizzle. Simply start with the foundation. Are you eating enough calories? We don't even have to get into where the calories are coming from, which we'll get into a little bit. But for this first topic, think about foundation. Am I eating enough? Otherwise, you're, no pun intended, you're going to run out of gas.
Yeah,
It's
and
frustrating for a lot of people.
that's what's crazy is we talk about this almost every episode, right? Is it just keep it simple, and we take advantage of our bodies because they are so resilient, right? We could drain our bodies to nothing, and we still keep going, right? And probably not at the performance level that we want to be, but we're designed to stay alive, and so we take advantage of our bodies, and that kind of takes me to the next one is that's our immune system and immune support, right? And the reason that you want to make sure that you're eating enough calories and eating the right calories and just making sure that you're overall healthy, right, is also to make sure that your immune system is fully charged up, right? There's we've got this flu thing making its rounds again, I guess. Um, but things like that. And then not only getting sick, but also reducing the risk of injury as well.
And I'm glad that you used the word injury, because if we, again, take a motorcycle, you wash it, you don't relube the chain. You wash it, you don't relube the chain. Next thing you know, the chain's squeaky, right? What is our biggest concern? Going up the face of a jump and that chain snaps. Well, if you go back to the idea of fuel is going to be your food, your engine casing oil, that's going to be your high quality fats. And then, like you're saying, the fruits and vegetables, those are the micronutrients that help support. I want to be careful how I say this. Fruits and vegetables are catalysts for energy. They interact with carbs, protein, and fat. Very simple. Micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, interacting with macronutrients. These are big buzzwords that everybody throws around. Macronutrients, a carb, a protein, and a fat. So we always use the example, and we've done it on the show here previously. Macronutrients are going to be the big logs. The micronutrients are going to be the kindling that helps you get the log to start to burn. When you're looking at it in the realm of the motorcycle, and I'm glad that you bring up the word injury, if you don't eat fruits and vegetables, your immune system is jeopardized. If you don't eat enough, keyword enough, macronutrients, the integrity of the overall system breaks down. Now we're injured. And how many times have we said on the show, the only two things that will slow you down as an athlete is getting sick or getting injured. Now, there's one little caveat to all this. When we think about getting injured, we hear a lot about these top pros running into fatigue-related diseases. Well, when your adrenal system doesn't get enough high-quality fat, high-quality MCT, medium-chain triglyceride, omega-3s, right? All of those high-quality oils feed. You're in the business, you're in one of your top products is your funnels, right? The threaded funnels in your GCMX tools. So when you think about the funnel is the adrenal system. Well, when you put fat in the top of the funnel, it goes in and it literally oils the adrenal system. It allows the adrenal system to be able to offset stress on a daily basis. Think about this. When somebody is not getting enough high quality fat and they're not getting enough food, the adrenal system is like an engine casing with an insufficient amount of oil. It's running, but it's running hot. And it's only a matter of time before it's going to grenade. Unless you get the oil back up, get the radiators filled back up, all of a sudden now the motor starts pulling better, right? Because it has what it needs. That's why we say food needs to be looked at as a foundation to avoid injury and avoid illness. If we go down, Dan, if people can really stop and visualize this, go all the way down to the density of your bones, because everything's wrapped around your bones. Well, we all want thick bones so that we bounce and we don't break. That is only going to happen if you eat enough food. Now, when we say food, we're going to make the assumption that the quality is good. So you start with the bone, quality and quantity of food. You have injury resistant, very thick, dense bones. Bones attached to bones through ligaments. So if you want to have a very, very strong ligament, make sure that you're eating enough. Tendons attach muscles to bones. We need to make sure that the tendons are very, very thick and resilient to tearing. And how do you get that? Enough food, enough sleep, and then the density comes in. Now we're fourth gear wide open. We hit a kicker. We get side swap. We get thrown off the bike. We'll bounce and we won't break. So that's why when we talk about the foundation, it's just like a bike, whether it's new or used, it all stems around that oil in the casings the radiator fluid, and what you're putting in the tank.
And it's getting back to what you're putting in the tank, i.e. your body, right? Not just your fuel tank in your bike, but your body, right? Is those good quality foods and not overcomplicating your diet with these fad diets and things like that, the keto and the Miami diet or whatever the hell they are, right?
Yeah.
It's something just simple, basic. Make sure that you're eating good quality foods, but it's really over the consistency of what you're eating versus these hardcore extreme diets. Because I'll tell you, I've tried those in the past, right? These hardcore diets where you're on this keto kick for 2 weeks or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden, you're craving Burger King, right? And you go have Burger King, and because you're burned out of this diet, right? It's super strict. Next thing you know, you eat Burger King. Next thing you know, it just was one time. Next thing you know, it's just another time won't hurt, and then you drop off it really quick, right? So I think if you don't overcomplicate it, that definitely makes a big difference.
It makes all the difference in the world. And what's interesting about us as humans, and I've teased about this on the show previously, we're supposed to be the smartest species, but we do everything in the world to sabotage ourselves. Now, when I say that, I don't want that to be a kick in the shins to anybody. It's exactly what you just articulated. Anything that we do in extremes is going to cause our bodies to retaliate at some level. I'll give you a perfect example. If you eat nothing but straight meat, your body will literally cannibalize muscle tissue to get enough sugar. And that's the part people don't realize. You're in the gym trying to get strong. You're eating a tremendous amount of meat. It's a lot of amino acids. You will put on muscle. The brain's preferred fuel source is always sugar. So if you do some research, you'll notice that the muscles will get cannibalized to get the sugar that the brain needs. So you're literally eating the muscle that you're trying to build, but it's under this auspices of, well, we don't, we can live on meat alone. Well, again, I'm not being argumentative. I'm just asking you to change your perspective. If you don't think that fruits and vegetables are relevant, then when you go and you get your blood work and you see that you're low on vitamin C, you're low on B6 and B12, your energy vitamins. If you're eating a lot of meat, you won't be low in iron. But if you look at the vitamins and minerals that come from fruits and vegetables, why is it on your blood panel? Because they all matter. And that's what's pretty scary when somebody says, hey, strip fruits, strip vegetables out because they have sugar. Get away from the sugar. Ask yourself, what's the nutrient value of each and every, I call it the color. When you walk into the grocery store, don't look at it as that's a pear, that's an apple, that's a cucumber, that's an onion. Look at the color of it and let that represent in your brain. That's a vitamin. That's a mineral. That's a micronutrient. Because remember what we said earlier, those micronutrients interact with carbs, protein, and fat to produce energy.
Yep.
And think about how we opened up tonight's show, Dan. Somebody came to us, a multitude of people came to us and said, man, I'm running out of gas. What the hell is going on? Well, we always start with volume. Are you just literally burning more than you're taking in? There's where, Dan, we've mentioned it on the show here because it is a vet show. I grew up with a reserve on my motorcycle, right? Well, we're running on a reserve all the time. And then all of a sudden we can't. And then unfortunately, because our sport, I hate to use the word dangerous, but it's dangerous, right? If you're fourth gear wide open and you go off the face of a jump or you're threading the needle through the trees and you run out of gas, all of a sudden you get thrown over the bars. That's avoidable. And it's the same thing for you. And we've talked about this as well. Your depth perception. You work so hard to get your skills and drills dialed. You're on the gas wide open. And all of a sudden you find yourself, you're shutting down quicker and sooner than you quote unquote should. That's because your depth perception as to when to transition from gas to brake is now negatively impacted. Now you're irritated because your lap times get slower. Not realizing that as your blood sugar drops, your ability to perceive depth. So you're not on the gas. And again, then we have the other extreme. You don't get on the gas, you don't get on the binders quickly enough. Then you come in the corner on your high side. And then you put your arm out and then you end up breaking your wrist or end up jacking your shoulder up. Why? Because you misjudged where the apex of the corner was. It's funny. So many correcting mechanisms.
Because I think that I've got a little bit of a real world scenario on this one.
Okay.
I mean, this happens to all of us, right? But sometimes you just have a bad day at the track, right? Where you just don't feel like yourself. You're just maybe not into it, maybe low energy, maybe you just don't feel strong. if you stop and think about it, and you think about, like what you've been eating and, maybe the last, couple days leading up to that, that'll tell the whole story, whether it's nutrition, whether it's stress, right? It's
Yeah.
something caused that. It doesn't just happen. I guess suppose it could just randomly. There's days where I'm not in a good mood and I've eaten great and I don't have any stress, but I'm just not in a good mood for whatever. But go back and try to backtrack what
Yeah.
happened before, because I don't think it's always just a coincidence.
No, you're exactly right. And it's not what's on our scope of conversation here today, but when you think about the idea that your sleep quality is going to be directly influenced by your ability to bridge the calorie gap. If we go back to a 3-month-old baby who has no words, you give him a bath, you lay him down, he or she is, and you don't feed him, he or she is not going to sleep through the night. Anyone who's been a parent would concur with that, right? But yet we think that we can just go on this calorie deprived diet because we're going to lose body fat. And we're tired of being fat, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you wouldn't do it to a 3-month-old, why would you do it to a 50-year-old? Well, because somebody on social media is advocating that you could or should do it. I have to question that very hard. And here's the other side of the litmus test, right? You wouldn't do it with a 3-month-old. And I've been fortunate enough to be at the Olympic Training Center as an athlete. They damn sure would not allow you to do that at the Olympic Training Center. They would call you a fool
Yeah.
because they recognize that they're there to try to get your body to handle the next level of speed, the next threshold of endurance, et cetera, et cetera. So is every one of our listeners.
Yeah.
So what I want our listeners to think about is you and I did not create nutrition. We did not create the principles of physiology. My job is to make sure that our listeners understand what they are, really understand and interpret what they're trying to tell you, and then do your level best not to argue with it. The best example I could give you, and I've given it to you privately, is you hire me as a mechanic for this weekend's, World Vets at Glen Helen. And then I come up with this brilliant idea to save weight on the bike, and I'm going to cut the radiator by half. I'm going to cut the engine casings by half. Your bike will definitely be lighter, but then you're going to fire me because you're like, dude, you're just going to overheat my bike and even possibly grenade it. Yeah, but Dan, I saved you 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Bike's going to be more nimble. You're going to get the whole shot because you're 4 pounds lighter. You go, Rob, that goes against the principles of mechanics or the mechanical world. And I'm asking you, please don't argue with the principles of physiology and nutrition because of what you said earlier. I've been doing this since 87. I know I'm showing my age, right? We've gone through in the strength training. We've gone through super slow. We've gone through supersetting. We've gone through everything under the sun up to and including HIIT training, high intensity interval training. Look at nutrition. We've gone from 3 balanced meals. We've gone to graze every couple hours. Now we've gone to eat once a day. Now we've gone don't eat for 3 days. Why was it worked in the 80s? It doesn't work in 2025. It worked in 2001, but it doesn't work in 2024. And then again, this isn't like we're on a vendetta against anybody, but isn't it interesting? And you just said it yourself, and you and I don't pre-rehearse our conversations together. Isn't it interesting what you said? You went on keto or paleo or any extreme diet, and then what does the body do? It starts to crave things that it needs. Remember,
Yep.
an external sign is an indication of an internal problem. When you're craving simple sugars, that's an external sign of an internal problem. It's adrenal fatigue. That's one of the big 4. If your adrenals are under attack, you're craving simple sugars, you have night sweats, you have a low sex drive, and you're tired and you can't fall asleep. And as we say all the time, it could be a combination of all those at some minor level, or it could be just one at a significant level or a mixture of all. If you have an external sign, fix the internal problem. Well, why would your adrenals be under attack? Not enough food, not enough high quality fat, i.e. oil for the casings. Why are you running out of energy? Probably don't have enough calories coming in, therefore you run out of energy. And Dan, I think this is a good time to go to the next one. Hydration.
Hydration. And this is the one I have been very transparent that I struggle with. And it's, yeah, I don't know. There's no excuse, coach. I just don't drink enough.
Well, and this is why I always go back to the motorcycle. Let's say any of our listeners picked up a used bike or they picked up a brand new bike and they hire a dumb mechanic like me. And the novel idea is, well, let's just save weight by running that radiator at quarter full. So now you just, you get off the bike and you can just hear it's like overheating. And you know that that's an excessive heat stress that's 100% avoidable. In fact, and I hate open-ended questions, so I'm not going to do it to you. But you and I, we have an engine builder. We have Mitch build us a new motor, and it's a rip roaring. We get one of the PC type motors. Do you think we're going to put an undersized, a stock, or an oversized radiator on it? Everybody's going to go oversized. Why? Well, we got to dissipate that heat that much. So here our listeners are trying to get leaner. They're trying to go longer, faster, and then they don't have enough fluid. And then they get frustrated because they're like, damn it, I fill in the blank, got tired. And we'll explain why you get tired when you're dehydrated. You overheated. I think that's pretty straightforward, right?
Yep.
And when you recognize that the only role of water coming to the skin is to dissipate heat, the exact same role the same role as our radiator. Well, if there's no water to dissipate heat, guess what? You cook.
Yeah.
And then people are like, damn, I got my butt kicked by the heat. No, you just are dehydrated, unfortunately. Like you said, Dan, you own it. I want to come back to the idea of energy. And if you guys are driving and listening to this, please don't take your eyes off the road. For those of you that are sitting at your desk, look at my fingers. Okay. So we've talked about this before, that's a hydrated cell membrane. For those of you that are driving, I'm doing an AOK symbol. My pointer finger's touching my thumb. You've got a nice big surface area. That is a perfectly hydrated cell membrane. And the reason why that's so incredible is because you carry oxygen on the surface area of the cell. So now I'm going to cut that in half for those of you that are driving. Now the surface area of the cell is half. Now, this is where I need people to stick with me, even though we're going to get into some physiology. I don't think it's that complicated. You're out there hauling the mail on your motorcycle. You're putting the muscles under demand. The oxygen demands that the muscles have are not going to go down. You're flying out there. You're ripping around Zeb's track, right? You're at Hangtown. You're tearing it up. Well, the problem is the oxygen demand of the muscles is still constant, but the availability of oxygen in the blood is not there. So now you have an artificially elevated heart rate, and we wonder why we get tired quicker. That's all it is. And then you can get into things like if the muscles are not properly hydrated, they can't contract properly. And if the tissue is dehydrated, the muscles can't slide and glide. So it's like a chain that needs grease. Man, the brand new motor, and you've got a chain that's back there squeaking. And we all know, what is that chain? If it needs to be greased, what's it doing? It's robbing power from the motor, right? So your skin not able to slide and glide, muscles not able to contract because you're dehydrated is such an easy fix.
Coach, I wanted to ask you something. I see it all the time, and I think we've probably touched on this before, but guys at the track just drinking water, right? And that's it. Nothing, no supplement to that water, no energy fuel, no electrolytes. It's just plain water. Obviously, I think drinking water potentially could be better than not drinking water at all, or any liquid at all, but it can hurt you as well, right? As far as flushing the nutrients and the things that you do need out of your body.
100%. I'm glad you brought that up. And you mentioned this earlier, and you don't even realize how much meat is on the bone. You need to be thinking about your hydration levels before you get to the track, especially for those of us that get a chance to ride after work. Take your 12-hour day, 7 in the morning. I'm just going to say that you can ride at Hangtown at 7 p.m. in the evening, right? Well, between 7 in the morning and 7 at night, before you get to the track, you should have already consumed half of your body weight in ounces of water. So let's be very simple here, right? You weigh 160 pounds, that's 80 ounces. Over that 10 to 12-hour period, you need to have consumed those 80 ounces of pure water. And I liked what you said. Pay very close attention, because if you go above that, you dilute the electrolytes in your blood, and that's a dangerous situation known as hyponatremia. Now we get to the track. Now this is where we have to figure out what is our sweat rate. Because when you're looking at daily hydration, that's the two variables: what you need to stay alive, and then what you lose in the form of sweat. Riding, cross training, you have to know what your sweat rate loss is. But you bring up something that a lot of people don't realize. When you drink straight water, it will make you sick to your stomach. It'll make you nauseous. And the science behind our product is called energy fuel. The reason why an electrolyte drink is so important is because electrolytes, they play two roles. And I don't want this to be confusing. When a muscle contracts, it uses electrolytes. So if you're electrolyte depleted, you can actually become slower because the muscle can't contract as as we call it the contractile strength. How much can a muscle can contract? Well, as it dehydrates and or loses electrolytes, it becomes weaker. So you see where a lot of people think it's a fitness issue? It's nutrition and hydration. So I'm hoping there's some big epiphanies for our listeners today.
Yeah.
When you come back to the idea of why do we feel nauseous when we drink water, is because unfortunately, without the electrolytes, the water sits in your belly, you get that sloshy feeling and it makes you nauseous. Electrolytes' second role, first is muscle contraction, second is to help you absorb fluids, and this is why you urinate more when you drink a sports drink. So there is a legitimate science behind it, for
When you
sure.
do, if you're drinking energy fuel, right, you want to drink the energy fuel half an hour, an hour before.
We want to start like 15 to 20 minutes before, and then just when you come off the bike, just keep milking it. You don't have to be obsessed with it, but I'm going to contradict myself. When I say don't be obsessed with it, Dan, if you know what your sweat rate is and you come off the bike and you drink 8 or 9 ounces because you've calculated that's what your sweat rate is, you're able to maintain stabilized blood sugar, which is what we were talking about earlier, allows you to maintain consistent lap times because your depth perception is on the money.
Yeah.
And that's where you can make a big, big difference. It's something that's very, very sophisticated, but just take my word for it. Believe it or not, when you get ready to go out on the track, take energy fuel, put it in your mouth and swirl it around. There's all kinds of chemical changes that happen in your brain. Just
Interesting.
take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, I could do an hour dissertation on it. It gets into some deep blood chemistry. It gets into hormones. It's really, really cool. There's a tremendous amount of science on it. So literally just swirling a mouthful of energy fuel in your mouth is going to improve your lap times.
Interesting. I'll have to try that. I've not heard.
Really cool.
Coach, I want to wrap this one up with
Yes, sir.
again, this is a vet show, right? And we're busy. We talked about this we're just busy individuals, right? We're not professional athletes. We're not making a living racing dirt bikes. So there has to be, these strategies need to be practical for us, right? We have to make these things work in our everyday lives that are just so busy. So I wanted to kind of go through just meal prep on the go, things like that, just some quick strategies that us vet riders can use. And then also, how to read your body and how to, whether it's your polar watch or, and just overall how you feel, how to read it and kind of how to go from there.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question because at the end of the day, we'll start with the second part of what you mentioned there. At the end of the day, please remember that the definition of overtraining is not the volume of training you're doing. It's the volume of training that you can absorb. Remember what we've talked about. I've got professional triathletes that do 40 to 45 hours and they're not overtrained. So for our vet riders that might be able to do an hour a day off the bike, might be able to ride an hour, hour and a half on the weekend, that doesn't mean that you're overtraining if you're exhausted. And this is where, like you just alluded to, look at your Garmin metrics, especially the recovery ones. Is your body battery bouncing back to 100 every day? Look at your stress score. Is it averaging out around a 25? Look at your resting heart rate. It should be very, very consistent. Remember, if you rode yesterday, you're okay if your heart rate's up 3 or 5 beats because you know why it's up, because you rode.
Yep.
But what we want to be careful of is when you start stacking that, it's called residual fatigue. When you stack the fatigue from Monday to Sunday, and think about it, most of our listeners, we only get to ride on the weekend. Not all of us, but the majority of us, right? Well, unfortunately, you bring in a completely exhausted human being. All of us live to ride. I think we live for our families as well, but we enjoy to ride. Well, you're carrying 5, 6, 7 days of stress from work, balancing your checkbook, taking care of your family, and you finally get that one day on the weekend that you can ride, and you're plumb exhausted before you get there, but we're so pumped to ride, and we end up getting hurt. So that's why the recovery metrics are so important. If all your metrics are showing that you're exhausted, am I saying don't ride? No. I get it. You love to ride. Keep your wheels on the ground and go enjoy a turn track.
Coach, I want
That simple.
the meal prep on the go. I'm gonna paint a picture for you.
Okay.
Sunday morning, I'm going riding. I'm going riding from 8 to 1, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yep.
What am I packing for food and hydration?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you're going to be starting riding at 8 o'clock, just remember that your solid meal needs to be done by 6 a.m. And I know that's inconvenient for everybody. But what I don't want to see you do is shit your pants or throw up in your helmet. And if you have too much food in your stomach still trying to digest and you bring the heart rate up, it's going to purge. So if you have a young athlete or you yourself have ever articulated that you don't eat on race day because you get nauseous, it's because you're eating too close. You haven't given yourself enough time to digest and purge. 2 hours is your magic number. You get to the track, like you were saying. Now, I'm sorry, Dan, let's go back to breakfast. If you've got 2 hours to digest and purge, you can eat whatever you normally eat for breakfast during the week. Your body doesn't care. It doesn't know if it's Tuesday or if it's Saturday. But when you get to the track, this is the $1,000,000 question. With pros, it's much easier. Dan, my question to you would be, what's your ride cadence? Are you at a track where they let you ride 20 and then there's a 40-minute break before you can go back out?
Nope.
Well,
It's
if you've got a
open
40-minute
practice. Well, I go with that because that's how most tracks operate.
Okay. So if you know that you can go out and ride for 20 minutes, you get there, you get dressed, you're milking your energy fuel, and that's the key word because you're keeping the sugar and the electrolytes topped off. You go out and you ride your 20 minutes. When you come in, a 40-minute window is a good window for you to have a banana and some almond butter, an Uncrustable, handful of nuts. I'd be a little bit careful with nuts.
Did you say Uncrustable?
Yeah. Uncrustables
I
are great.
love Uncrustables.
And now, for those of you who don't know what an Uncrustable is, it's a pre-made peanut butter and jelly. It's in the frozen food section of your grocery store, and they're made by Smuckers. Now, we're not here to say that the quality of the peanut butter, the bread, and the jelly are high quality, but in that 20-minute window, your body only cares about easily digestible sugar. Now, here's where I need everybody's undivided attention. You don't want to have a bottle of energy fuel, which is 300 calories, and an Uncrustable, which is 180 to 200. You're going to shit yourself. 300 is the max you want to take in because the Uncrustable is very simple sugars. See the difference? You either want to do one or the other, or maybe half of the Uncrustable in a half a bottle. 300 calories is kind of your glass ceiling.
So in that case, Coach, say I'm gonna eat the Uncrustable, okay, and I'm gonna have some almonds or something also with to get that 300 gap.
Yep.
I do need to hydrate, right? Should I just be drinking water?
Nope. I would not drink water exclusively when you're at the track.
Okay.
Because of that lack of absorption, you need those electrolytes. It's kind of like when you come in, you've gone out and you've done a 20-minute session. You don't make an assumption that you have enough gas for the next 20. You top it off. And so that's what you're wanting to do, is make sure that your body's going to absorb what you're taking in. If you take straight water, it could sit in your belly. It will not absorb, and you get that slushy gut. You're probably going to get nauseous again. Then see how quickly you can get nauseous from eating too much food too closely to bringing your heart rate up, the complexity of the food too close to bringing your heart rate up, or in this case, straight water before you bring your heart rate up.
Makes sense.
That's a brilliant question. And then at that point, all you're doing is you're just maintaining on an hourly basis. You said from 8 to 1, you're just looking for about 300, 350 calories per hour that you're there. And then as soon as you're done for the entire day, go ahead and you can snack on rotisserie chicken, a peanut butter and jelly sit, whatever you have that sounds good while you're sitting there talking with your buds. Maybe you've got some Tupperware with some pasta. Eat whatever you want at that point. Now, here's the crazy part, is elevating your heart rate, high temperatures will both suppress appetite. So a lot of times we're getting undressed, we're loading up, and we're not even hungry.
Yeah.
So that's one of the downsides to it, because you know that the recovery needs to start as soon as you get off the bike. Problem is your appetite suppressed? So, and we talked a little bit about it last webinar together about hitting recovery correctly. So please take a listen to that if you haven't listened to it.
Well, episode number 16 has been another banger, Coach. It's been a pleasure today. And thank you for letting us pick your brain. I know all the listeners appreciate it as well. Again, we love getting the DMs and the emails and the texts and everything else. So keep sending us your feedback. Thank you to HP Development for jumping on board with today's episode. And Coach, we will see you next time.
You got it. Peace.